Can you create a space to foster higher performance? See, last month I had the opportunity to go to Vienna to listen to a beautiful symphony in Schönbrunn Palace. This in itself was an extraordinary experience, but it was made even more incredible by the fact that we were listening in the same hall where Mozart himself used to frequent and play. This is a well-known and historic venue. I sat in the show and listened in amazement as the walls soaked in the melody as it had for centuries and positioned itself to provide some of the greatest acoustics I've ever heard. It made me think of some other fantastic venues for song that I visited in the USA, such as the Red Rocks Amphitheater, Radio City Music Hall, and the Hollywood Bowl. I also thought of some very famous worldwide venues as well, such as the Sydney Opera House, the Vienna Opera House, and Wembley as well. And all of these are indeed great venues, and they've really brought wonderful performances by different artists. And it makes me wonder, can these venues inspire great performance? What makes these venues so iconic? Well, first, all of these venues have an inspiring atmosphere. Whenever you walk into the main auditorium of Radio City Music Hall, you are greeted by a captivating sunrise that beams from the stage all the way to the back seat. Whenever you walk in, the ceiling is majestic and uplifting. And whenever you walk in, you see that the floor is littered with sewn-in visual jazz notes. And so the melody begins in the soles of your feet. The atmosphere is a part of what inspires this great performance. And in your work teams, you can also inspire great performance through your atmosphere. Open doors, encourage conversation, the mood of your office. I was working with one very large corporation that went through a massive department remodel. And in the remodel, they took out all of the collaboration rooms and the meeting rooms and replaced them with bigger offices and more offices. They really discouraged people from hanging personal pictures and decorations at the attempt of a more clean look. They moved and removed several items for better cosmetics, but at the cost of lower functionality. And at the end of the remodel, the department did indeed look sleeker, sharper, and more clean, but the family-type atmosphere was completely depleted, which affects the organizational culture and performance. If you're in a remote team, you can also create an atmosphere. This can be with a random Slack channel, in your emails, the tones of your emails, the expectations for productivity in the week, your dress expectations. Are you coming in your pajamas or are you coming in a full suit? What are the expectations in that atmosphere? Your office hours expectations, the look, the feel, the tone, the setting can all create an atmosphere that can affect your team performance. Also, the acoustics of a place can inspire higher performance. There's this venue in my hometown that is the biggest and most prestigious venue in the city. And I deplore going to shows there. Why? Because the echoes and the acoustics of the place really impede on the message being received. Sometimes I have a hard time hearing what the performer is trying to say, simply because of the echoes and the noise, and sometimes because of my cheap tickets, my proximity to the stage. And all of this prohibits a really great experience. And none of it is to the fault of the performer, but to the fault of the venue. And in the same way, you can create acoustics in your organization that dramatically affect the effectiveness of the message being received. Echoes, noise, proximity, all can enhance or inhibit the message. Reply all or not turning off your mute are sometimes somewhat comical attributes to the noise. Complexity and overcrowdedness are two massive factors that inhibit message effectiveness. I was consulting with one very large organization that had the trifecta of great distance and proximity, complex messages, and an overcrowded discussion, which all led to a frenzy. And while I did do some coaching and training, a massive step that we took forward was to adjust the acoustics in the organization that allowed for messages to be better received. See, the acoustics in your organization can affect performance. And finally, all of these iconic music venues have a tremendous ancestry. The deep history of the Chambron Palace, of playing in the same venue as one of the greatest, most famous, well-known composers in all of history, is really bone-chilling. And I sat in the audience and I thought about the fact that the exact songs that the performers were playing were once played in this exact same venue by the original composer, Mozart. And a sense of pride and history and understanding of background brought more purpose and meaning to me as a listener, and certainly to the performers. I was actually able to speak with several of the performers after the show, and they did admit that this was a dream venue, and they knew that whenever they donned the stage, there was an expectation to perform the songs with all respect and diligence and duty. And the same with organizations today. With companies like Apple and Steve Jobs or Disney, whenever you walk onto the campus, there is an expectation of excellence in your performance. The impact of the past can bring an expectation to perform in the future. Now, if you're a startup company, you can still invoke this sense of ancestry. I've actually worked with a few small startups that take a pride in a more recent history and really take the approach of history making within the company. And so the ancestry can bring a sense of belonging and purpose and tradition into your work teams and in your venue to foster higher performance. Great venues and great companies invoke a sense of responsibility, of diligence and pride to perform. And then they do their best to uphold the great history of that team name. See, your venue can affect team performance. It can affect the emotion and camaraderie of your team and the atmosphere. It can affect the ability for messages to be clearly received in the acoustics. And it can affect the sense of purpose and pride and history in the ancestry. So here's one thing that I want you to do today. Look at your venue, otherwise known as your workspace. And again, this could be a physical space. For most of us right now, it is our remote space. We might be going back to a different physical space in the near future. So I want you to look at your venue, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to make adjustments to your venue and transform it from merely functional to one that is more iconic, like the one in the Palace in Vienna, with these three key ideas in mind: in the atmosphere, the acoustics, and the ancestry. Make adjustments to your venue to invoke higher performance in your teams today.